The wind howls with a fury that could strip flesh from bone. In a landscape where the thermometer plunges to -50 degrees Celsius, a people live as their ancestors did 1,000 years ago. These are the mountain herders of Mongolia, and what you're about to discover will challenge everything you think you know about survival. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to live in complete isolation, where a single mistake could cost you your life? In Mongolia's remote mountain ranges, herders face what meteorologists call Dzud, catastrophic winter events where temperatures drop below -40 degrees Celsius and snow buries the grasslands. During the winter of 2023-2024, Mongolia experienced the heaviest snowfall in 49 years, with 90% of the territory buried under thick layers of snow. Yet these mountain herders don't flee. They stay, living in felt tents called gers, hunting to supplement scarce resources and performing spiritual rituals that connect them to forces most of us have forgotten exist. What drives someone to choose this life? What ancient knowledge allows them to read weather patterns in animal behavior, to find water beneath frozen ground, to keep their families alive when temperatures would kill an unprepared person within hours? The horses these herders tend aren't pets or livestock in the way you might imagine. They're extensions of the herder's own body, trained from birth to navigate treacherous mountain passes in complete darkness, to sense approaching storms before any modern technology could detect them. A herder might spend more waking hours with their horses than with their own family. When a child is born in these mountains, often the first gift they receive is a horse, and by age 5, children ride alone across terrain that would terrify experienced mountaineers. But what happens when one of these precious horses is injured far from any help? What choices must a herder make when a storm is coming and the closest trading post is 3 days' ride away? Before we journey deeper into this extraordinary world, I want to share something with you. Creating these documentaries takes months of research, countless hours piecing together the stories of cultures that are slowly disappearing from our world. If you're fascinated by these glimpses into lives so different from our own, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our future journeys to the most remote and remarkable places on Earth. And I'm curious, what country are you watching from right now? It's amazing to me that people from every corner of the world gather here to learn about traditions and ways of life that many never knew existed. Thank you for being part of this global community of curious minds. Now, let's continue into the heart of Mongolia's mountain wilderness. Hunting in these mountains isn't sport, it's survival. When winter grips the land for 6 unrelenting months, when livestock are too precious to slaughter frequently, herders must hunt for meat to feed their families. Some have revived the ancient practice of eagle hunting, training golden eagles with wingspans exceeding 2 meters to hunt foxes and rabbits across the snowy peaks. The training of a single hunting eagle can take 3 years and represents knowledge passed through family lines for centuries. A hunter might hike for 12 hours through knee-deep snow at temperatures of -35 degrees, carrying their eagle on their arm in search of prey. The bond between hunter and eagle is considered sacred, maintained through daily feeding and spiritual rituals that honor the eagle as a partner, not a tool. But this ancient practice is disappearing. Each year, fewer young people have the patience to spend 3 years training an eagle when they could leave for the capital city and find easier work. What will be lost when the last eagle hunter dies? What knowledge, refined over millennia, will vanish with them? The physical challenges these herders face daily would break most people within a week. Imagine waking at 4 a.m. when it's -30 degrees outside your ger, forcing yourself into frozen boots and walking half a kilometer to check on livestock. Your breath freezes instantly in the air. Exposed skin develops frostbite within minutes. The wind doesn't just blow, it attacks, finding every gap in your clothing, stealing body heat so efficiently that without proper wool and fur layers, you'd be hypothermic within an hour. Yet children as young as 7 make this same journey, helping their parents with morning chores, because every family member must contribute for the family to survive. These aren't soft, modern childhoods. These are childhoods where a mistake, Forgetting to secure a gear door properly or startling the horses at the wrong moment could have serious consequences for the entire family. Among the men, physical contests aren't just entertainment. They're essential training for survival and a way to prove honor within the community. Mongolian wrestling teaches the grappling skills needed to control livestock and the mental toughness to keep fighting when exhausted. Archery maintains the steady hand necessary for accurate shooting in howling winds when hunting is the only option for feeding your family. Horse racing tests both the training skill of the herder and the quality of their horses, a direct measure of their competence in the most crucial aspect of mountain life. Winners gain respect that translates into real advantages. Better marriage prospects for their children, first choice of grazing grounds, leadership roles in community decisions. But what happens when someone repeatedly loses these contests? How does the community view a man whose horses are slow or whose aim is poor? Life in these mountains operates by rules most of the modern world has forgotten. The cycle of seasons dictates everything. Summer is for moving livestock to high mountain pastures where grass grows thick. Autumn is for preparing, gathering what little hay can be dried, repairing the gear, checking every piece of equipment because there will be no second chances once winter arrives. Winter is for survival, for burning argil, dried dung, the only fuel source when there are no trees, for keeping animals alive, for rationing food, for enduring. Spring brings new life, but also new dangers. Melting snow makes travel treacherous. Animals weak from winter are vulnerable to predators and disease. This is the rhythm of life in Mongolia's mountains, unchanging, unforgiving, and utterly dependent on knowledge that took generations to accumulate. But how did this land shape such resilient people? What is this country called Mongolia, and why does it breed such extraordinary toughness? Mongolia, officially known as Mongol-Uls, is a landlocked nation situated in East and Central Asia, sandwiched between two giants, Russia to the north and China to the south. This positioning has shaped its history, its culture, and the fierce independence that characterizes its people. With a total land area of 1,564,116 square kilometers, that's 603,909 square miles, Mongolia is the 19th largest country in the world, slightly larger than Alaska. To put that in perspective, you could fit the United Kingdom inside Mongolia more than 6 times. Yet despite this enormous territory, Mongolia is home to only approximately 5 million people, making it the world's most sparsely populated sovereign nation with a population density of just 2.3 persons per square kilometer. Imagine, in Mongolia, each person theoretically has nearly half a square kilometer to themselves. Can you picture that kind of space, that kind of solitude, especially when you're living in remote mountains? The capital and largest city is Ulaanbaatar, situated in the north-central part of the country at an elevation of approximately 1,150 meters above sea level. This city holds a unique distinction. It has the lowest average annual temperature of any national capital city in the world. Roughly half of Mongolia's entire population, about 5 million people, lives in Ulaanbaatar, creating a stark contrast between urban concentration and the vast, almost empty countryside where herders maintain their traditional lifestyle. Other significant cities include Erdenet, known for copper mining with a population around 100,000, and Darkhan, an industrial center in the north. But venture just 50 kilometers outside these urban centers and you'll find yourself in landscapes so empty, so silent, that the absence of human presence becomes almost tangible. Mongolia's geography is as diverse as it is extreme. The country spans multiple climate zones, from the permanently frozen tundra of the north to the scorching Gobi Desert in the south. The terrain rises dramatically in the west, where the snow-capped Altai mountains form a natural barrier with peaks exceeding 4,000 meters, including Khövsgöl, which towers 4,000 meters above the surrounding steppe. The central region is dominated by the Khangai and Khenti mountain ranges, both forested and rich with wildlife. These northern reaches experience the coldest temperatures, where in places like Bayantes Sum in Zavkhan province, thermometers have recorded minus 50 degrees Celsius. The southern regions transition into the vast Gobi Desert, where temperatures swing from minus 40 degrees in winter to plus 40 degrees in summer, an 80-degree range that tests the limits of human adaptation. The climate here is what scientists call strongly continental, characterized by long, brutally cold winters and brief, sometimes scorching summers. Winter typically lasts from November through March, with January temperatures in Ulaanbaatar averaging minus 25 degrees Celsius as normal. But in the mountains where our herders live, conditions are far harsher. Wind chill can make these already extreme temperatures feel life-threatening, and blizzards can strike with little warning, reducing visibility to zero and making travel impossible. Yet Mongolia is also called the land of blue sky because it enjoys approximately 250 cloudless days each year. The country receives only 200 to 220 millimeters of annual rainfall, less than many deserts, making water a precious resource that herders must carefully manage. How do these herders find water when rivers freeze solid for 6 months? What knowledge do they possess about snowmelt and underground springs that keeps their livestock alive? Mongolia's history is inseparable from the legacy of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire, which in the 13th and 14th centuries became the largest contiguous land empire in human history. At its height, the empire stretched from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to Southeast Asia, with Mongol horsemen striking terror across 3 continents. This wasn't achieved through superior numbers or technology, but through unparalleled horsemanship, mobility, and the harsh discipline forged by survival in exactly the kind of extreme environment our mountain herders still inhabit today. After centuries of Qing dynasty control by China, and then a period as a Soviet satellite state, Mongolia declared independence in 1911, though it wasn't until 1992 that the country fully transitioned to democracy and a market economy. This history of conquest, subjugation, and fierce reassertion of independence has left its mark on the Mongolian character. A pride in self-reliance, a deep connection to the land, and a determination to preserve ancient ways even as the modern world encroaches. The name Mongolia itself derives from Mongol, which linguists believe comes from the word Mong, meaning brave or fearless. Other theories suggest it means eternal fire, or is related to the Mongolian word for silver. Regardless of its etymological roots, the name has come to represent far more than a geographic designation. It evokes images of vast steppes, thundering horsemen, and a people whose toughness is legendary. This reputation isn't exaggerated, especially when you understand the environment that shaped them. Living in Mongolia, particularly in the remote mountains, means confronting nature at its most unforgiving every single day. There's no calling for help when disaster strikes, no emergency services arriving within minutes. There's only your skill, your animals, your family, and the knowledge passed down through countless generations of survivors. Those who couldn't adapt, couldn't learn, couldn't endure. They simply didn't survive to pass on their genes or their teachings. Mongolia has approximately 3,000 rivers with a combined length of about 67,000 kilometers, over 3,000 lakes, 6,900 springs, and 190 glaciers. These water sources are lifelines for the herders, though many freeze solid during winter. The glaciers in the Mongol Altai, Khangai, and Khenti mountain regions have been preserved by the constantly cold climate and strong winds. These high-altitude zones are home to some of the world's most endangered species, including the elusive snow leopard, which roams the same mountains as our herders. The country also boasts unique geological formations like the flaming cliffs of Bayanzag and the dramatic granite peaks of the Altai Mountains, where ancient petroglyphs still mark places where nomadic peoples passed thousands of years ago. But for herders, these aren't tourist attractions. They're navigational landmarks, shelter from storms, and sacred sites where spiritual rituals are performed to ask for protection and successful hunts. The land itself seems to resist easy habitation. Very little of Mongolia is arable. Much of the country is covered by arid and unproductive steppes that can only support grazing livestock, not crops. This is why the nomadic herding lifestyle emerged and persists. The land cannot be farmed effectively, so people must move with their animals to wherever grass grows. In spring and summer, this means high mountain pastures. In autumn and winter, it means sheltered valleys where snow doesn't accumulate as deeply, and animals can still dig through to reach dead grass. This constant movement, this inability to ever truly settle, has shaped a culture that values portability, adaptability, and the skills necessary to survive anywhere. The Dzud, that felt tent you keep hearing about, can be completely disassembled and loaded onto horses or yaks within 3 hours, then reassembled at a new location the same day. Every possession must be justified. Does it serve a critical function? Can it be transported? If not, it's discarded. Now that you understand this land, its size, its emptiness, its extreme climate, and its resistance to easy living, you can begin to comprehend the kind of landscapes that truly define Mongolia's character and why these mountain herders chose to live where they do. The Altai Mountains in western Mongolia rise like the spine of the earth itself, a jagged fortress where snow never fully melts from the highest peaks. These mountains stretch across the borders with Russia, China, and Kazakhstan, creating one of Asia's most remote and inaccessible regions. Here, peaks soar above 4,000 meters, that's over 13,000 feet, piercing a sky so blue and clear it seems almost unnatural to eyes accustomed to hazy horizons. The air at these altitudes is thin, each breath providing less oxygen, making even simple tasks exhausting for those unaccustomed to it. Yet herders and their families live at elevations between 2,500 and 3,500 meters year-round. Their bodies adapted over generations to function where lowlanders would gasp and struggle. The rock faces display every shade of gray and brown, striped with veins of darker minerals and lighter limestone, creating patterns that look almost deliberately artistic. In summer, narrow valleys between peaks burst with wildflowers, purple gentians, yellow primroses, delicate white edelweiss that exist nowhere else on Earth. But these brief explosions of color last mere weeks before snow returns to bury them for another 8 months. The mountains themselves are ancient beyond comprehension, formed over 300 million years ago by the collision of continental plates, then carved and sculpted by countless ice ages. Glaciers still cling to the highest ridges, brilliant white against dark rock, slowly grinding their way downward at a pace measured in centimeters per year. These glaciers feed the rivers that, during spring melt, become raging torrents capable of washing away anything in their path. Livestock, people, entire gers if positioned too close. Herders must read the landscape with expert eyes, knowing which valleys will flood, which slopes are prone to rockfall, which ridges will funnel winds into lethal forces. A mistake in choosing where to set up camp can mean waking to find your horses scattered, your tent collapsed under heavy snow, your family in mortal danger. The sound landscape of these mountains is equally dramatic. The constant whisper roar of wind, the crack of ice breaking, the distant rumble of avalanches, and in rare moments of calm, a silence so profound it seems to have weight. How do you think that kind of silence affects the mind? What does it do to a person to live where human voices are the rarest sounds? In these Altai peaks, temperatures during winter regularly drop to -40 or even -45 degrees Celsius. At those temperatures, metal becomes brittle and can shatter, exposed skin freezes in under 2 minutes, and inhaling too quickly can damage your lungs. The wind, channeled through narrow passes, can reach speeds of 100 kilometers per hour, creating wind chills that defy measurement on standard scales. Yet life persists here, adapted in remarkable ways. The snow leopard, perhaps the most elusive predator on Earth, hunts ibex and argali sheep across these peaks, its thick fur and wide paws allowing it to move silently across snow that would bog down any other predator. Golden eagles, The same species herders trained for hunting nest on cliff faces so remote that many have never been seen by human eyes. Herders occasionally spot these birds riding thermal updrafts, circling for hours without a single wing beat, their sharp eyes scanning for prey across territories spanning hundreds of square kilometers. Witnessing an eagle hunt in this environment is to see predation at its most efficient. The eagle spots movement from a kilometer away, folds its wings, and drops like a missile, accelerating to speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour before striking its prey with talons that exert crushing force. Nature here isn't gentle or forgiving. It's magnificent and brutal in equal measure. Moving south and east from the Altai, the landscape transitions into the Gobi Desert, a region that confounds expectations of what a desert should be. Unlike the endless sand dunes of the Sahara, the Gobi is a cold desert, a vast expanse of rocky plains, gravel flats, and sparse vegetation stretching across southern Mongolia and northern China. Here, summer temperatures can soar above 40 degrees Celsius, hot enough to make the horizon shimmer and dance with mirages. Yet winter brings those same brutal freezing temperatures found in the mountains. Minus 40 degrees is common. This 80-degree temperature swing between seasons creates an environment that tests human adaptability to its limits. The Gobi receives less than 194 millimeters of rain annually, yet it's not completely barren. Hardy grasses, tough shrubs, and succulent plants eke out existence, providing just enough vegetation to support herding, though herders here must move constantly, as any area quickly becomes overgrazed. The winds in the Gobi are relentless, carrying fine dust that infiltrates everything, coating skin, food, and clothing in a persistent layer that grinds and chafes. Dust storms can rise with terrifying speed, reducing visibility to zero and forcing herders to seek immediate shelter or risk becoming disoriented and lost in a landscape with few distinguishing features. The Gobi holds secrets beneath its austere surface. This is one of the world's richest fossil beds, where dinosaur bones and eggs have been discovered in remarkable preservation. The famous flaming cliffs of Dzud glow red and orange under the setting sun, their stratified layers revealing millions of years of geological history to anyone who knows how to read them. These cliffs, carved by ancient rivers and sculpted by wind, create a landscape that seems more extraterrestrial than earthly. Spires and hoodoos of sandstone balanced impossibly, caves and crevices that provide shelter for birds, foxes, and occasionally herders caught in storms. At night, far from any artificial light, the Gobi reveals a sky so dense with stars it looks three-dimensional, the Milky Way so bright you can see your own shadow by its light alone. Herders navigate by these stars, using constellations their ancestors identified centuries before modern astronomy, knowing that certain star positions indicate times for migration, predict weather changes, and guide them across featureless expanses where getting lost means almost certain death. Can you imagine navigating by stars alone, trusting knowledge passed down orally through dozens of generations, with your family's survival depending on your ability to find a specific spring or valley in the dark? Between the mountains and the desert lies the steppe, the rolling grassland that most people picture when they think of Mongolia. This is the traditional heartland of Mongolian nomadic culture, an ocean of grass that turns emerald green in early summer, golden in autumn, and bone white under winter snow. The steppe appears flat at first glance, but it's actually a constantly undulating surface of shallow valleys and gentle hills that can conceal entire herds of horses until you're practically upon them. In summer, this grass grows tall and thick, reaching knee-height in good years, providing the fodder that allows livestock to build fat reserves for winter survival. But the steppe is increasingly vulnerable to desertification, with the Gobi Desert gradually expanding northward due to climate change and overgrazing. Areas that were reliable pasture 30 years ago now support far less vegetation, forcing herders to move more frequently and travel farther to find adequate grazing. This environmental pressure is one of the major reasons why younger generations are abandoning traditional herding for urban life. The land that sustained their ancestors for millennia is becoming less reliable, less predictable, less able to support the same number of people and animals. In the far north, near the border with Russia, lies Lake Khövsgöl, often called the Blue Pearl of Mongolia. This pristine freshwater lake holds 2% of all the world's fresh water in its depths, an almost incomprehensible amount for a single lake. Surrounded by forests of larch and pine, by mountains still covered in permafrost, Khövsgöl represents a completely different face of Mongolia. Here, some herders raise yaks and reindeer instead of horses, adapting their lifestyle to forested terrain rather than open steppe or mountain. The water is so clear you can see 20 meters deep, so pure you can drink directly from the lake without treatment. Winter transforms Khövsgöl into a vast ice sheet thick enough to drive trucks across, creating temporary roads where none existed before and opening trade routes that are impossible during summer. Ice fishing through meter-thick ice provides essential protein during the lean months. What these diverse landscapes, mountains, desert, steppe, forests, and lakes, all share is their extremity, their resistance to easy habitation, and their demand that humans who live here must be tougher, more skilled, and more resilient than almost anywhere else on Earth. Now it's time to leave the general landscapes behind and focus on what truly defines life in Mongolia's remote mountains. The herders themselves, their animals, and the extraordinary survival skills that allow them to thrive where most would perish. What we're about to explore will reveal traditions and practices that have remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years. The transition from understanding Mongolia's landscapes to comprehending the lives lived within them requires a shift in perspective. These aren't people who visit the mountains occasionally for recreation or spiritual retreat. These are families who have chosen, or inherited, a life of almost complete isolation, where the nearest other family might be a full day's ride away, where there are no roads, no electricity, no running water, and no communication with the outside world for months at a time during the harshest winter periods. Why would anyone choose this? The answer lies partly in tradition, partly in economics, and partly in something harder to quantify: a sense of identity, purpose, and belonging that can only be found in living as your ancestors lived. For these mountain herders, the alternative isn't just different, it's incomprehensible. Moving to Ulaanbaatar would mean abandoning not just a way of life, but an entire world view, a set of skills refined over lifetimes, and a connection to the land that defines who they are at the most fundamental level. In the highest mountain valleys, herding isn't a job or a lifestyle choice in the modern sense. It's total immersion in the cycle of life and death, where your survival and your family's survival depend entirely on the health of your animals and your ability to manage them through conditions that regularly kill even the hardiest livestock. A typical mountain herder family might own between 50 and 300 animals, a mixture of horses, sheep, goats, yaks, and occasionally cattle. These animals aren't just property, they're living capital, mobile wealth that provides everything the family needs: meat, milk, wool, hides, and when necessary, trade goods that can be exchanged for the few items that must be purchased from outside: tea, flour, salt, metal tools. The herder knows each animal individually, can tell by looking whether it's healthy or sickening, pregnant or barren, likely to survive winter or too weak to make it. This knowledge isn't written down or formally taught. It's absorbed through thousands of hours of observation from childhood onward. A herder's son of 10 years old often knows more about animal behavior and health than a veterinarian trained in a city, simply because his education has been constant, practical, and literally life or death since he could walk. The daily routine in these mountain settlements follows patterns dictated by animal needs and seasonal demands. In summer, the day begins early, typically around 4 or 5 a.m., when the herder rises to check on the animals that have been grazing overnight. Horses are counted, ensuring none have wandered too far or been taken by predators. Mares with foals need to be milked, a process requiring both strength and gentleness, as the animals are semi-wild and only partially domesticated compared to their Western counterparts. Sheep and goats must be moved to fresh grazing, always with one eye on the sky because weather in the mountains can change within hours, and a herd caught in the open during a sudden storm can scatter and be lost. The morning also brings water hauling. Unless the camp is positioned directly next to a stream, water must be carried by hand, often over rough terrain, and in quantities sufficient for a family of 5 or 6 people, plus cooking and minimal washing. This alone can consume 2 hours of backbreaking labor daily. Do you perform 2 hours of hard physical labor before breakfast most mornings? Can you imagine doing it every single day without exception, from childhood until you're too old to continue? The Dzud, that portable dwelling that serves as home, is far more sophisticated than it might appear to outsiders. The circular structure, typically 4 to 6 meters in diameter, consists of a wooden lattice frame that can be expanded or contracted, wooden poles that radiate from a central ring to form the domed roof, and layers of felt made from sheep's wool that provide insulation. The thick felt walls, often 5 to 10 centimeters thick, trap air and create surprisingly effective insulation, keeping the interior relatively warm even when it's -30 outside, provided the central stove is kept burning. But maintaining heat requires constant fuel, and in treeless mountain regions, that fuel is argil, dried animal dung that must be collected year-round, stored when dry, and burned in quantities that a family can barely keep up with during the coldest months. Children as young as 5 have the daily task of collecting argil, filling bags and baskets, bringing it back to camp, and stacking it where it will stay dry. This isn't optional chore chart labor. If argil isn't collected, the family freezes. The stove also serves for all cooking, so managing the fire becomes a critical skill. Too hot wastes precious fuel, too cool and food won't cook, and the Dzud chills dangerously. Inside the Dzud, spatial organization follows strict traditional rules that everyone understands instinctively. The door always faces south to receive maximum sunlight and minimize wind exposure. The back of the Dzud, directly opposite the door, is the honored space where family treasures, religious items, and photographs of ancestors are displayed. The right side, as you enter, is traditionally the women's area, where cooking equipment, food storage, and household items are kept. The left side belongs to the men, where saddles, weapons, tools, and riding gear are stored. Guests sit on the left, showing respect by not interfering with the women's workspace. Children sleep near their parents for warmth, often in the same bed during winter. Privacy, as understood in modern Western culture, doesn't exist. Every sound, every movement, every conversation is shared by all. This creates a different kind of family bond. There's nowhere to hide, no separate rooms for sulking or withdrawal. Conflicts must be resolved or endured in immediate proximity. How would your family relationships change if you lived in a single round room together for months at a time? Seasonal migration, called otter in Mongolian, defines the rhythm of mountain herding life. The family doesn't simply stay in one location year-round. They move between summer and winter pastures, sometimes covering 50 to 100 kilometers between seasonal camps. Summer camps are positioned in high mountain meadows, where grass is richest, and the elevation provides some relief from insects that torment livestock at lower altitudes. These camps might be used for 3 to 4 months while animals fatten on abundant forage. As autumn approaches and temperatures begin to drop, the entire household must be packed. The Dzud disassembled, all possessions loaded onto yaks or horses, and the animals driven to winter pastures, typically in more sheltered valleys where mountains provide windbreak and snow doesn't accumulate as deeply. This migration isn't a leisurely trip. It's an exhausting multi-day journey where animals must be kept together, where footing is treacherous, where river crossings can be dangerous, and where losing essential supplies can mean a catastrophic winter. Upon reaching the winter camp, the Dzud must be reassembled, additional windbreaks built from stone if available, and preparations made for the months of hardship ahead. This lifestyle of constant adaptation, of moving with the seasons, creates people who are remarkably flexible and resourceful, but also people for whom permanence and long-term planning beyond the next season makes little sense. Now that you understand the basic framework of daily life and seasonal movement, it's time to explore the deeper aspects of mountain herding culture, the hunting traditions, the sacred relationship with horses, and the spiritual practices that give meaning to this harsh existence. Hunting in Mongolia's remote mountains exists at the intersection of necessity, tradition, and spiritual practice. When herders speak of hunting, they're not describing sport or recreation in any modern sense. They're describing one of the primary means by which families supplement their diet during the long winter months, when fresh meat from livestock herds must be carefully rationed. Slaughtering your own animals for meat is done sparingly, usually only for major celebrations, or when an animal is injured and won't survive anyway, because each animal lost permanently reduces the herd's productive capacity. A sheep that lives can produce lambs, wool, and milk for years. A sheep eaten provides meat for perhaps 2 weeks. The calculation is obvious. Therefore, hunting wild game, primarily marmots, rabbits, foxes, and occasionally ibex or argali sheep in the high mountains, becomes essential for protein intake, providing fresh meat without depleting the herds that represent the family's entire wealth and future security. The techniques used for hunting are as varied as the terrain and prey. Some herders hunt on foot, using rifles that might be generations old, carefully maintained and passed from father to son. Ammunition is expensive and must be carried in from distant towns, so every shot must count. Wasting bullets on uncertain targets isn't just wasteful, it's potentially life-threatening if you find yourself without ammunition when you truly need meat. Others employ traditional methods, setting snares along game trails that they've learned to identify through decades of observation, building stone blinds near water sources where animals come to drink, or tracking prey for hours through snow until the animal is exhausted and can be approached within shooting range. The most spectacular hunting method, though, is eagle hunting, a practice that has existed in Central Asia for over 4,000 years and continues today primarily among Kazakh herders in Mongolia's western provinces. Training a golden eagle to hunt on command represents the pinnacle of animal partnership, requiring patience, skill, and dedication that few people in the modern world can comprehend. Golden eagles are formidable predators. Females, which are preferred for hunting due to their larger size, can weigh 6 to 7 kilograms and have wingspans exceeding 2 meters. Their talons can exert crushing pressure of over 400 pounds per square inch, enough to break bones and kill prey almost instantly. Capturing an eagle for training typically happens when the bird is young, taken from a nest or trapped during its first year of life. The training process, which can take 3 years of daily interaction, begins with building trust. The eagle must be hooded and carried on the hunter's arm for hours each day, becoming accustomed to human presence, to movement, to sounds. The bird is fed by hand, always from the hunter, creating an association between the human and food that forms the foundation of their working relationship. As the eagle matures, training progresses to short flights, then to dummy prey, and finally to live hunting, where the eagle must learn to bring down foxes or rabbits and return to the hunter rather than consuming the prey immediately. Throughout this process, the hunter must maintain strict discipline, rewarding success with meat, providing proper care, but also ensuring the eagle remains motivated to hunt rather than becoming too well fed and lazy. A hunting expedition with an eagle is an extraordinary undertaking that reveals the harsh realities of mountain life. The hunter rises before dawn, often when temperatures are still minus 30 degrees or colder, and rides into the mountains with the eagle perched on his arm. The bird's weight, 6 or 7 kilograms, supported by a special wooden fork that distributes the load. The hunter might ride for hours, even all day, searching for suitable prey. When a fox or rabbit is spotted, the hunter rides closer, positions himself advantageously, then removes the eagle's hood and releases it. The eagle launches, building speed rapidly, its sharp eyes locked on prey that might be 500 meters away across steep terrain. The dive is spectacular. The bird folds its wings and drops like a missile, accelerating to speeds over 200 kilometers per hour before striking. If successful, the kill is nearly instantaneous, the eagle's talons crushing the prey's skull or spine. The hunter must reach the eagle quickly and reward it with a portion of the meat. This is absolutely critical. If the eagle is allowed to fully feed on its kill without the hunter's intervention, it learns independence and may refuse to hunt cooperatively in the future. This delicate balance, keeping the eagle motivated but obedient, hungry enough to hunt but healthy and strong, requires constant judgment and deep understanding of the individual bird's temperament. How long would you last carrying a 7-kilogram eagle on your arm in -30-degree weather, riding through mountains for 10 hours without rest? But eagle hunting is fading, disappearing a little more each year. The practice requires resources that fewer families possess. Horses capable of carrying hunter and eagle across difficult terrain. Time to train the birds when economic pressures demand herders focus on their livestock. Knowledge passed from master to apprentice, but apprentices are increasingly absent, having left for schools and cities. Equipment, special gloves, hoods, and perches, that must be handcrafted by artisans whose numbers dwindle. And perhaps most importantly, it requires a lifestyle that allows for the intensive daily interaction with the bird that training demands. A herder who must work a second job to survive, who must spend time dealing with government officials and paperwork, who must travel to town regularly for supplies, simply doesn't have the hours required to train and maintain a hunting eagle. Each year, several of the oldest eagle hunters die, their knowledge dying with them. Young people might express interest, might even try for a season or two, but few have the patience to see training through to mastery. Within perhaps 2 generations, this ancient practice may exist only in museums and documentaries like this one. What price are we paying as a species when knowledge refined over millennia simply vanishes because it's no longer economically viable? The relationship between mountain herders and their horses transcends any modern concept of pet ownership or livestock management. In these mountains, horses aren't transportation in the way a car is transportation. They're survival tools, companions, wealth, and partners in an environment where human survival alone is nearly impossible. A herder without horses is crippled, unable to cover the vast distances necessary to manage scattered livestock, to hunt effectively, to trade at distant markets, or to reach help in emergencies. Mongolian horses are unique among equines. Small and stocky, typically standing only 12 to 14 hands high, they appear almost pony-like compared to Western breeds. But what they lack in size, they compensate for in hardiness and endurance. These horses can survive outdoors year-round without shelter, pawing through snow to reach grass, enduring temperatures that would kill larger, more delicate breeds. They can carry adult riders for 50 kilometers in a day across mountain terrain and do it again the next day with minimal rest. Their sure-footedness on rocky slopes and ice-covered trails is legendary. They navigate terrain that would break the legs of other horses, seemingly knowing instinctively where to place each hoof. Training begins almost from birth. Foals are handled daily, becoming accustomed to human touch and voice. By age 2, they're introduced to saddles and riders, not gently broken as in Western traditions, but trained through a process that respects their semi-wild nature while establishing human dominance. A young horse might buck, rear, and fight, and the herder must stay mounted through all of it, demonstrating superior will and strength. Once broken, though, these horses become remarkably cooperative, understanding commands given through leg pressure, weight shifts, and voice far more than through reins. A skilled herder can guide his horse through darkness, through storms, through river crossings, often with minimal input because horse and rider have learned to think as one unit. Children learn to ride before they learn to read, because reading isn't necessary for survival in the mountains, but riding absolutely is. By age 5 or 6, children ride alone to check on animals, to carry messages to neighboring camps, to fetch water from distant springs. By age 10, they're accomplished riders capable of handling horses in difficult conditions that would challenge adult riders from other cultures. This isn't child endangerment in their view, it's education, preparing the next generation for the life they'll lead. Daily horse care, even in extreme conditions, is non-negotiable. Horses must be checked every morning and evening, counted to ensure none have wandered, inspected for injuries or signs of illness. Their hooves must be examined regularly. A horse with a stone bruise or cracked hoof becomes useless. And in an environment where veterinary care doesn't exist, prevention is everything. In winter, horses must sometimes be provided with supplemental feed when snow is too deep for them to reach grass on their own, meaning herders must have cut and stored hay during the brief summer months. This requires predicting months in advance how severe winter will be and how much hay will be needed. Too little and animals starve. Too much and labor was wasted that could have been spent on other survival tasks. The bond between a herder and his primary riding horse becomes profound over years of shared experience. That horse has carried you through blizzards, across frozen rivers, up mountain passes where a single misstep would mean falling to your death. That horse has found its way home when you were lost in whiteout conditions. That horse has stood patiently for hours in killing cold while you repaired a broken saddle or searched for a lost sheep. When such a horse dies, it's not just losing property, it's losing a partner who quite literally kept you alive. What do you value in your life that compares to that? What possessions or even relationships carry that level of life or death importance? The daily rhythm of life in mountain isolation follows patterns established long before anyone alive can remember. These aren't schedules imposed by clocks or external demands, but rhythms dictated by animal needs, daylight hours, weather conditions, and the exhausting reality that survival requires constant labor. A typical day begins when the first person wakes, usually the mother or the eldest daughter, who immediately restarts the fire in the gyar's central stove using carefully preserved coals from the night before. In the depth of winter, temperatures inside the gyar might have dropped to near freezing overnight despite the thick felt walls, and getting the fire re-established is the first priority because nothing else can happen until the family has warmth. While the fire builds and tea water begins to heat, the father and older sons dress in their layers. First wool long underwear, then wool trousers and shirts, then padded deal, the traditional Mongolian robe, then fur vests, then heavy overcoats, then fur hats and felt boots lined with wool. This dressing process alone can take 15 minutes in the cold, and even fully dressed, the herders know they have perhaps 4 to 6 hours before cold exposure accumulates enough to require returning to the gyar for warming. The morning work is distributed according to age and gender, though these divisions are practical rather than strictly ideological. The men go out to check the horses and larger livestock, a task requiring riding or at minimum walking several kilometers across rough terrain. The women remain closer to camp, milking animals that have been brought in overnight, processing milk into yogurt, cheese, or butter, and beginning food preparation. Children, depending on age, might go with the men, help the women, or be assigned specific tasks like collecting argol, fetching water, or watching younger siblings. Breakfast, when it finally happens, is simple. Typically milk tea, sute tsai, made with tea, water, milk, salt, and sometimes a small amount of fat, a drink that provides calories, hydration, and warmth in one vessel. This might be accompanied by dried meat, perhaps a bit of cheese, maybe a piece of hard bread if flour is available. No one eats to fullness, particularly in winter. You eat enough to function, to provide energy for work, but you don't waste food because you never know how long current supplies must last. Children learn not to complain about hunger, not because their parents are cruel, but because complaining doesn't create more food and only wastes energy. Midday brings different tasks depending on season. In summer, herders might move animals to better grazing, repair the gyar or its furnishings, work on leather crafts, making or repairing saddles, boots, straps, bags, or prepare for the coming winter by cutting and drying grass for hay, if the location provides suitable grass. In winter, simply maintaining current conditions absorbs most available energy. ensuring animals aren't scattered by storms, preventing predators from taking livestock, keeping pathways clear of snow accumulation, maintaining the GR's integrity against wind that can tear felt covers or break the wooden frame. There are no days off, no weekends, no vacation time. There is only the continuous cycle of tasks that must be done for the family to survive another day, another week, another season. For those of us who work 5 days and rest 2, who take holidays and sick days, who can call for help when we're overwhelmed, it's almost impossible to truly comprehend what this constant demand feels like. How would you function if you knew that every single day for the rest of your life, you would wake to hard physical labor in extreme conditions, with no prospect of that ever changing? Spiritual and religious practices are woven throughout daily life, not separate from survival tasks, but integrated with them. Most Mongolian herders practice a blend of Tibetan Buddhism and older shamanic traditions that predate Buddhism by millennia. Small altars in the ger display images of Buddha alongside blue prayer scarves, kadag, and offerings of food or milk. Prayer flags printed with mantras flutter from poles near the ger, their colors fading under the relentless sun and wind. But the older practices remain strong. Ovus, ritual cairns built from piled stones, mark sacred spots throughout the mountains, and passing herders always add a stone and walk clockwise around 3 times, asking for safe journey and good fortune. Before hunting, proper rituals must be performed, asking permission from the mountain spirits and promising to take only what's needed. When an animal is slaughtered, prayers are said thanking it for its sacrifice. These aren't quaint superstitions to the herders. They're essential practices that maintain harmony with the land and the spirits that inhabit it. Fail to show proper respect, and misfortune follows. Animals sicken, storms strike unexpectedly, hunters return empty-handed. Whether these beliefs have objective power or whether they function by reinforcing sustainable practices and cautious behavior, the result is the same. They help people survive. Physical contests and demonstrations of strength aren't just entertainment, but serve crucial social and practical functions. Mongolian wrestling, called buk, is practiced from childhood, with boys beginning serious training by age 7 or 8. The wrestling is distinctive. No weight classes, no time limits, no ring boundaries, just 2 men gripping each other and attempting to force any body part above the knee to touch the ground. Matches can last minutes or hours, testing not just strength but endurance, strategy, and willpower. Champions gain enormous respect in their communities, respect that translates into influence and status. But beyond status, wrestling teaches the grappling skills needed to control large livestock, to mount uncooperative horses, to fight off predators or even other humans when necessary. Archery, traditionally performed on horseback, but now often practiced on foot during festivals, maintains the steady hand, focus, and breath control necessary for successful hunting. Horse racing tests the training skill of herders directly. The fastest horses belong to the most skilled trainers, proving their competence in the single most important aspect of herding life. Winners of these contests aren't celebrated for arbitrary achievement, but for demonstrating the exact skills that survival in the mountains demands. A champion wrestler who can't read, who can't do mathematics, who knows nothing of history or science, that man is nonetheless highly valued because his skills are the ones the community needs. The challenges of raising children in this environment are immense and fundamentally different from parenting anywhere in the developed world. Education in the formal sense often doesn't exist or is limited to a few months per year when families camp near small settlements with basic schools. Many herder children are functionally illiterate, not from lack of intelligence, but from lack of access and, frankly, lack of necessity. Reading doesn't help you track animals, ride through storms, or survive winter. The Mongolian government has attempted various programs to provide education to nomadic children, including boarding schools where children live for months at a time. But this creates an agonizing choice for parents. Do you send your children away to gain education and opportunities, knowing they'll likely never return to herding life? Or do you keep them home, teaching traditional skills, knowing they'll be trapped in an increasingly difficult lifestyle with few alternatives if they ever want to leave? Healthcare is similarly problematic. A child who breaks a bone, who develops appendicitis, who suffers burns from the stove. That child might be days away from any medical facility, and the journey itself in winter conditions could be fatal. Herder families must be their own first responders, setting broken bones, treating infections with traditional remedies, managing pain with whatever they have available. Infant and child mortality rates, while difficult to measure accurately in such remote populations, are certainly higher than national averages. Parents live with the knowledge that their children face dangers daily that most modern parents never contemplate. And yet, these children also grow up with capabilities, confidence, and resilience that their urban counterparts can scarcely imagine. By age 10, a herder's child can ride for hours through difficult terrain, navigate by landmarks and stars, manage livestock, help butcher and process animals, make and maintain essential equipment, and survive comfortably in conditions that would incapacitate most adults from other cultures. Which childhood is better? Which children are truly more prepared for life? The answer depends entirely on which life they'll actually live. And that's the question that haunts every herder parent. Will there even be a place for this lifestyle when my children are adults? Will they be the last generation to live this way? Now that you understand the daily reality of mountain herding life, the hunting traditions, the sacred relationship with horses, and the physical and spiritual practices that define this existence, it's time to confront the most profound and challenging aspects of this culture. The elements that will truly test your understanding and empathy. The harshest reality of mountain herding life, the one that outsiders find most difficult to comprehend, is the absolute necessity of making life and death decisions with a frequency and consequence that would break most people. When winter storms strike with full fury, when a Dzud event buries pastures under meters of snow and temperatures plunge to -50 degrees for weeks on end, herders must make choices that haunt them forever. Which animals do you try to save and which do you let die? Do you slaughter your weakest livestock now for immediate food, or do you hope they survive and preserve your breeding stock? If supplies run critically low, do you risk a multi-day journey to the nearest settlement in conditions that could kill you, or do you stay and ration what remains, knowing your children are hungry? During the catastrophic Dzud of 2023-2024, when 90% of Mongolia's territory was buried under heavy snow, over 7 million livestock died nationwide. For herders, each of those deaths represented not just lost animals but lost income, lost food security, sometimes the complete destruction of everything they'd built over decades. Families that had herded successfully for generations were reduced to destitution in a single winter. Some made the impossible decision to slaughter most of their herd for whatever meat could be preserved, then walked away from herding life forever because there was nothing left to herd. The psychological toll of this lifestyle, particularly during extended isolation in winter, is something rarely discussed but profoundly real. Imagine going 3 or 4 months seeing only your immediate family, with no outside contact, no variety in routine, nothing but white landscape and gray sky, and the endless tasks required to keep everyone alive. Seasonal affective disorder, depression, anxiety. These clinical terms exist in cities, but in the mountains, such conditions simply manifest as declining function, shorter tempers, withdrawal, and in the worst cases, complete breakdown. There are no therapists, no support groups, no medication. There is only endurance, and some people simply cannot endure. The suicide rate in rural Mongolia, while difficult to measure accurately given the remoteness of populations, is known to be significantly higher than in urban areas. For men particularly, the enormous pressure of being responsible for family survival, combined with the physical toll of aging in such a harsh environment, can become overwhelming. A herder who can no longer ride effectively, whose hands shake too much for accurate shooting, whose body breaks down from decades of cold exposure and hard labor, that man faces not just personal diminishment, but the knowledge that he's becoming a burden rather than a provider. Traditional culture offers no comfortable retirement, no pension, no senior living facility. You contribute or you die, and the transition from the former to the latter can be brutal. Children in these environments face their own unique psychological challenges. They grow up knowing hardship, witnessing animal deaths, understanding that survival isn't guaranteed, and carrying responsibilities that would be considered abusive if imposed on urban children. A 10-year-old who must ride alone for hours in dangerous conditions to retrieve lost livestock, who must help slaughter and butcher animals from a young age, who might be required to make serious decisions about animal welfare when parents are incapacitated. This creates either extraordinary resilience or deep trauma, and sometimes both simultaneously. Many herder children develop a stoicism and competence that's remarkable. But at what cost? What does it do to a child's development to grow up with so little softness, so little room for childish play and innocence? Modern psychology barely begins to address these questions because the sample sizes are too small and the population's too remote to study effectively. We simply don't know the long-term psychological effects of growing up in such extreme isolation and hardship, though we can observe that many young people flee to cities as soon as they're old enough, suggesting that whatever resilience they developed came with a desire to escape. The physical degradation that this lifestyle inflicts on the human body is severe and accelerated. Herders by age 40 often look 60 by Western standards. Decades of extreme cold damage circulation, leading to chronic pain in hands and feet. Faces become deeply lined and weathered from constant sun and wind exposure at high altitudes where UV radiation is intense. Joints deteriorate from a lifetime of riding, heavy lifting, and physical labor in cold that makes muscles and connective tissue brittle. Dental problems are endemic given the diet and complete lack of dental care. Vision often declines from snow blindness and the constant strain of scanning vast distances. Women who have given birth multiple times in the GER, often without any medical assistance, frequently suffer long-term complications. Back problems, arthritis, respiratory issues from years of smoke inhalation in enclosed spaces, hearing loss from constant wind exposure. These are virtually universal among herders past middle age. There is no medical intervention, no pain management beyond traditional remedies, no physical therapy or surgery to correct problems. You simply hurt, increasingly, until eventually your body gives out entirely. Life expectancy for remote herders is significantly lower than Mongolia's national average, though exact figures are difficult to obtain. What do you think about this level of hardship? This kind of existence where comfort is non-existent and survival is the only goal? Could you imagine living this way, making these impossible choices, watching your children face dangers that would be unthinkable in a modern context? What aspect of this life surprises or challenges you most? Please pause for a moment and leave a comment with your thoughts. It's genuinely the best way to support this channel, and it helps others see different perspectives when they read the comments section. I read every comment, and I'm always fascinated by how people from different backgrounds react to these glimpses into vanishing ways of life. Thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts. Now let's discover more about what makes Mongolia and its people so remarkably unique. Beyond the harsh survival realities of mountain herding, Mongolian culture expresses itself through vibrant traditions that reveal a people who celebrate life even while battling constantly to maintain it. Naadam Festival, held every July, is Mongolia's most important annual celebration, often called the Three Games of Men, because it features wrestling, archery, and horse racing, the exact skills we've discussed as essential for survival. During Naadam, herders travel from remote areas to regional centers, sometimes journeying for days to participate or watch. The wrestling competitions follow ancient protocols. Competitors wear special costumes, including a tight vest that leaves the chest exposed, snug shorts, and tall boots, then perform an eagle dance before matches, spreading their arms and hopping to imitate the bird that represents freedom and power. Champions who win multiple matches at the national level earn titles like lion or elephant and are celebrated throughout the country. The archery competition tests accuracy at ranges up to 75 meters using traditional recurve bows, with men shooting at leather rings and women at closer targets. But the horse racing is perhaps most spectacular. Children as young as 5 years old ride semi-wild horses across open-steppe courses stretching 15 to 30 kilometers, with no saddles, helmets, or safety equipment of any kind. The winners receive praise not just for themselves, but for their horses and their trainers, because a fast horse represents skilled breeding and training over years. Mongolian cuisine reflects the pastoral lifestyle and the limited ingredients available in an environment where agriculture is nearly impossible. The diet centers almost entirely on meat and dairy products. Mutton is the primary meat, prepared in dozens of ways. Boiled simply with just salt, stir-fried with wild onions, dried and preserved for winter, or prepared as kushur, fried meat pies that are especially popular during festivals. Beef and horse meat are eaten less frequently but are considered delicacies. Dairy products achieve remarkable variety despite coming from just a few animal sources. Irog, fermented mare's milk, is the national beverage, slightly alcoholic, sour, and effervescent, with a taste that many foreigners find challenging, but Mongolians consume in enormous quantities during summer when mares are producing milk. Arul are dried curds, hard as rocks, that can be stored indefinitely and provide portable nutrition. Yogurt, butter, and various cheeses supplement the diet. What's notably absent is variety in vegetables, fruits, or grains. In remote areas, families might go months eating nothing but meat, dairy, and occasional tea with salt. The sute tsai, salty milk tea, is consumed throughout the day and is considered as essential as water. This extremely high-protein, high-fat diet provides the calories necessary to maintain body temperature and energy in extreme cold, but it also means that herders who move to cities and switch to more varied diets often experience significant health changes, not all positive. Traditional Mongolian music tells stories of the land and the nomadic experience through distinctive instruments and vocal techniques. The morin khur, or horsehead fiddle, is considered the national instrument, a two-stringed instrument with a carved horsehead at the top and strings traditionally made from horsehair. The sound is haunting and melancholic, evoking the lonely vastness of the steppe. Musicians play it during celebrations, ceremonies, and quiet evenings in the ger. But perhaps most remarkable is kyomei, throat singing, where a single performer produces multiple pitches simultaneously, creating an otherworldly sound that seems to emerge from the landscape itself. This technique, practiced in Western Mongolia, particularly among Tuvan and other ethnic minorities, requires years of training and produces sounds ranging from deep rumbling drones to high whistle-like overtones. Traditional long songs, called urtin du, feature extremely extended vocal lines that can hold a single syllable for dozens of seconds, mimicking the endless horizons of Mongolia's landscapes. These aren't just entertainment. They're cultural preservation in sonic form, carrying stories, history, and identity forward through generations when written records barely existed. Craftsmanship among herders reaches levels of skill rarely seen in modern mass-produced societies. Everything a family uses must be made by hand or traded for, and quality directly impacts survival. Saddle making is an art form requiring understanding of leatherworking, wood carving, metalwork, and animal anatomy. A well-made saddle distributes a rider's weight correctly, allows for long riding without injury to horse or rider, and lasts for decades with proper maintenance. Boots must be crafted from leather and felt, designed to withstand extreme cold while allowing enough flexibility for riding and walking. The deal, Mongolia's traditional robe, seems simple but is actually sophisticated in design. The long sleeves can be rolled down to protect hands in cold. The high collar protects the neck. The wrap design eliminates vulnerable seams, and the bright colors, reds, blues, greens with elaborate embroidery, provide visual joy in an environment that's often monochromatic. Women particularly excel at needlework, creating intricate patterns on clothing, decorative items, and ger furnishings during the long winter months when outdoor work is impossible. This craftsmanship isn't hobby work or artistic expression in the modern sense. It's essential skill that directly supports survival and represents accumulated knowledge about what works in extreme conditions. Mongolian Buddhism, introduced from Tibet in the 16th century, coexists with older shamanic practices in a syncretic system where both are considered valid and necessary. Monasteries, nearly all destroyed during the communist period, are being rebuilt across the country. Even remote herders maintain small altars in their gurs where they make offerings and perform prayers, seeking blessings for their herds, safe travels, and good fortune. But when serious spiritual intervention is needed, when unexplained illnesses strike, when bad luck persists, when spirits seem angry, herders often turn to shamans who channel ancient traditions predating Buddhism by millennia. These shamans, both men and women, enter trance states through drumming and dancing, claiming to communicate directly with ancestor spirits and nature spirits that control weather, animal fertility, and human fortune. Skeptics might dismiss this as superstition, but for herders, these practices provide psychological comfort and a sense of control in an environment where so much is beyond human influence. Whether the spiritual forces are objectively real or whether the rituals function through psychological and social mechanisms, they serve crucial functions in helping people cope with extraordinary stress and uncertainty. What would you turn to if you lived where no government, no infrastructure, no medical system, and no outside help existed? Wouldn't you also develop beliefs and practices that helped you feel less alone, less powerless, in the face of forces that could destroy everything you've built without warning? Wildlife in Mongolia's mountains represents some of the world's rarest and most magnificent species, animals that have evolved to survive the same harsh conditions that test human limits. The snow leopard, perhaps the most elusive large predator on Earth, roams these peaks in small numbers, hunting ibex and argali sheep across territories spanning hundreds of square kilometers. These cats, with their thick fur, wide paws that function as natural snowshoes, and long tails used for balance on cliff faces, represent the ultimate adaptation to high-altitude life. Herders occasionally spot them, though actual encounters are rare and the relationship is complex. Snow leopards sometimes kill livestock, especially when natural prey is scarce, creating conflict between conservation and survival. The argali, wild sheep with massive curved horns that can weigh over 20 kilograms, inhabit the highest peaks where few predators can reach them. These animals, standing over a meter at the shoulder, are hunted legally by wealthy foreign trophy hunters who pay enormous fees that theoretically support conservation, though herders see little benefit and much of the money disappears into corruption. Ibex, wild goats with spectacular curved horns, perform gravity-defying leaps across cliff faces, feeding on sparse vegetation in areas no domestic livestock can access. Golden eagles, marmots, wolves, foxes, vultures, each species fills a niche in the mountain ecosystem, and herders know them all intimately, understanding their behaviors, their seasonal movements, their relationships to weather and prey. In dramatic contrast to mountain isolation, Mongolia's capital Ulaanbaatar represents modernity colliding with tradition in ways both exciting and problematic. This city of 1.5 million people, nearly half the national population, sits in a valley surrounded by mountains, prone to temperature inversions that trap pollution and create some of the worst air quality on Earth during winter months. Soviet-era apartment blocks dominate the skyline alongside new glass towers, while sprawling gear districts cover the hillsides where rural migrants have settled, creating a surreal landscape where traditional felt dwellings exist side by side with modern infrastructure. Young people in designer clothes walk past elderly people in traditional dress. Shopping malls, international hotels, and restaurants serving cuisine from around the world operate blocks away from outdoor markets selling traditional crafts and herder supplies. The city offers universities, hospitals, entertainment, and opportunities impossible in the countryside, which is why it continues drawing young people from rural areas. And this is where this video ends for today. If you're fascinated by these incredible stories of cultures and places that few people know about, I have a special request for you. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notification bell. This ensures you won't miss any of our upcoming documentaries about the most remote and fascinating corners of our planet. And here's the question that really matters. Do you want to see the continuation of this documentary? Leave in the comments, "I want part 2," if you want me to bring the rest of this story. The more comments and likes it receives, the faster I'll produce and publish the continuation. Your participation literally decides whether this documentary continues or not. Also, take the opportunity to tell me, what country are you watching from? It's incredible for me to know that people from all over the world gather here to discover these extraordinary ways of life. Each interaction from you helps me continue producing this quality content that takes months of research to create. Thank you for watching until the end, and see you in the next adventure.